I'm gonna cover a couple of things today, real quickly. Uh, we'll go back and we're going to revisit foot candles briefly. This is a foot candle guide that's was put together by the Seattle Lighting Lab, which is very similar to DLT, but a West Coast organization. They went through and grabbed a few things, and a couple of things that are interesting to look at about foot candles is that it's not just a reading that IES is concerned about. For instance, in a warehouse, average maintained foot candles. That's not the peak levels, that's not the minimum levels, that's the average levels. So for bulk items with large labels, 10-foot candles is adequate. In the horizontal, that is, you're holding your light meter out in front of you and reading up. Small items with small labels, 30-foot candles. Cold storage, 20. But see, this next column says range. Okay, cold storage, they want a 10 to 30-foot candle range maximum. Uh, so you're looking at an average of 20, but you don't want to go below 10. And you don't need to go above 30. In open warehouses, 20-foot candles, but again, 10 to 30. In warehouse aisles, 20, and again, 10 to 30. They also have the vertical columns. This is when you're holding the light meter up against the rack and it's aimed across the aisle. It's not aimed up at the light source, it's aimed across the aisle. So for bulk items with large labels, 5-foot candles on the label is adequate. For small labels, you want 15-foot candles. You can have 30-foot candles on the floor, but maybe not have 15-foot candles on the shelf, which tells you one of two things. So either you put in a larger light source and increases 30, which would then, increases 15. Or you look at the beam angle of the fixture you're putting in to get a better side spread and less downwards. Uh, Cold storage, they want 10-foot candles on the labels with a range of no more than 5 to 15. Warehouse aisles, you want 10 in the vertical. On the side of the aisles, you want 10 with a range of 5 to 15. You come into you know, open offices, we always measure 30 inches above the floor. That's where people's eyeballs are. When you're measuring foot candles, you want to measure the foot candles where people's eyes are. If their eyes are focused on the floor, then we need to know what it is on the floor. But if it's on a desktop, we don't care what it is on the floor. We do care what it is on the desktop. It's similar for task tables and things of that sort. So they're looking at an average of 40 in an office with a range of 30 to 50. Why does IES have a range in there? Because you can have an average of 40, but you can be almost dark in some spots and you can be 80 in other spots. Lumpy light. They don't want lumpy light. They want an even light level across the floor, as even as reasonably possible. So a lighting designer is going to lay out the fixtures in such a way as that there's overlap of beams to provide for at least a minimum light level with to keeping it within this range. Private offices are 40, conference rooms are 30, restrooms are 18, lunch and break rooms about 15. Classrooms need to be about 40, with a range of 30 to 50. And again, we're looking at desktops. We don't care what the light level is on the floor, but we do care what it is on the desktop where people are going to be reading or things of that sort. A gymnasiums, it's an interesting one because you can see class one, class two, class three, class four. An elementary school only needs about 30-foot candles, but class one for professional or division one college needs 125-foot candles on the floor. This has to do with cameras and the ability to, film and broadcast, the activities on the floor. There's not going to be much of that in a gymnasium. It's just going to be handheld phones and things of that sort. But as you move up in, the professional levels of, or or the professional performance levels of the teams, you need higher and higher light levels. Auditoriums, you only need about 7.5 foot candles. Basically, you're just looking at walking around light level. You don't need light levels high enough to read or or any heavy reading. But 7.5 is adequate with a range of 3 to 10. Uh, Corridors, again, we're still in schools. You want a good light level. You want a light level of 25 average with a range of 10 to 40. You don't want any dark spots. You don't want any, too bright, but 10 to 40 for a range. In its industrial settings, when we're working with simple or large items, 30-foot candles is adequate. But if you're in an electronics plant, you might need 100-foot candles where they're working with very small, products. And again, we're talking about on the work surface, not on the floor, and not necessarily every place in the space. Only in the spaces where they're actually assembling something would need to be 100-foot candles. The aisleways could be 25, that'd be fine, but 100 on the tabletops might be required. So we need to know when we're doing our audits, okay, this tabletop needs to be 100-foot candles, and we've got a high bay over the top or a task light over the top of this table. That table should be identified as a separate line on your audit so that we know that, okay, this one is going to get a 160-watt fixture while the one adjacent to it in the aisleway is going to get a 110-watt, fixture. We're trying to minimize power consumption, and we don't need 100-foot candles every place in the facility. In component manufacturing, large and medium size, 30 and 50. So you can see it goes from 30 to 100-foot candles, depending on the intricacy of what they're trying to do with the light. So pay attention to how they're using the light. And if there's a specific need in a specific location, then we want to identify that so that we specify, the right level of lighting for that particular location. We move the exterior covered parking exterior. That's like carports in apartment complexes, for instance. 5-foot candles are all that's required. In open parking areas, in urban areas, 1.5-foot candles is all that's required. One in a suburban area, 12.5 under a gas station canopy, and one around the, and these safety lights are lights that are like over stairwells and things of that sort on the exterior of a building. Excuse me. We just need 1-foot candle there. Ironically, people tend to really overlight exterior lighting. And that does a couple of things that are wrong, three things. One is it consumes far more energy than necessary. Two, you're in danger of what's called light trespass. That is, you're creating glare or spillover on a neighbor's property. In both cases, that's not acceptable. And the third thing is dark skies initiatives. You know, communities all across the country are working towards eliminating uplighting and lighting that contributes to too much light in the skies. So they call them dark sky initiatives, and we run into them all over the place. Las Vegas has a dark skies initiative. It prohibits lights shining straight up. It also dictates what color light we use on the outdoor light. Uh, in retail department stores, we want like 40-foot candles with a range of 20 to 80. If we're going to shoot for 80 in areas where the store manager wants to highlight products like a rear wall or maybe he has a space that he puts out specials, and he has some tables laid out, and they put special products on it. We might want to go 50, 60, 70 foot candles in those areas to highlight those areas. But the overall average just needs to be about 40. Now, it's interesting on the horizontal, in the perimeter of the stores, we want 75 foot candles. Remember, I said like the rear wall, walls need to be really high, light levels. The stores like to have, bright, walls and rear wall, side walls and rear walls, because it attracts people's attention. It draws them towards that light, and that'll draw them all the way to the back of the store. So 75 foot candles is, what they're looking for on the wall. Remember, this is vertical. So this is on the wall. To get 75 foot candles on the wall, we either have to have a light fixture that's aimed at the wall, or we're going to be, in the horizontal, we're going to be close to 100 foot candles. Accent lighting needs to be 3 to 10 times greater than the ambient level. So if you've got 40 foot candles, and you want to put accent lighting in someplace, then you need to be 3 to 10 times higher. So that would be, 120 watts to 400 foot candles. I mean, 120 to 400 foot candles for accent lighting. This might be artwork, it might be statuary, it might be, something that you're really trying to draw people's attention to. In automotive showrooms, automotive dealers are not so over light levels. IES calls for 50. Most of the car dealers you're going to run into are going to want it up around 100. They just, yeah, they're really not so over high light levels. We had a car dealership up in Washington that his only marching orders were that he had to be the brightest lot on the street. He had like Nissan and Toyota and a couple of others, adjacent to him, and he was the darkest lot in the street. So he wanted to be the brightest lot on the street. He didn't care what the foot candle readings were. He didn't care how much energy he consumed. The only thing he cared about was he had to be the brightest, on the car on the street. So the automotive world, IES has its standards, but pay close attention to what the store manager is saying, because he's the one that is ultimately going to be buying, the lighting. In grocery stores, you for aisle 20 and 50 for general retail, 25 to 100 is a range, and 10 to 40 foot candles on the shelves. So when somebody's looking at the can of soup, there should be somewhere close to 40 foot candles on that can of soup, so they can read the label. Uh, they've added ATM machines. We don't do much in the way of ATM machines because we don't do much in the way of equipment lighting. Equipment lighting is usually done by the original manufacturer of the equipment. Uh, but that's a quick rundown. This is a very good form. I'm going to send it out to everybody. It'll give you an idea of what kind of light levels and what the ranges are and what the considerations are for different applications of the light level. We're going to talk a little bit about the lighting audit. I want to go over this again. Why are we doing a lighting audit? And one of the things that kind of came to the back of your mind is audit can be a bad word in some people's lexicon. I used the term audit one time when I was talking to a bookkeeper, and that poor girl almost had a stroke. She was thinking audit as in taxes, as in inventory, and scared the hell out of her. So I've come to start using the term lighting survey to be a little less intimidating to some people. But why are we doing it? We want to determine what the energy usage is currently associated with our lighting. How do we do that? We look at the counts, and we look at the wattages, and we look at the operating hours for each location within the site. We're trying to gather luminaire and bulb counts, as accurate as possible. Uh, we want to measure and record current lighting levels, and we want to pay particular attention to areas that have specific light level needs. We did a large warehouse, shipping warehouse facility that manufactured very tiny little products with tiny little part numbers on them. And these parts were all mil spec, so they had to be inspected before they went out. They had a QC area that was uh, marked off on the floor in their warehouse, and the products prior to shipping were moved into that QC area. Unfortunately, the QC area didn't have enough light to be able to read the little tiny print. So the QC people would move the pallet up to the shipping dock where, with the big open doors, they had plenty of light. They would open the boxes, they would record the part numbers on the products, record the part numbers on the boxes, record the quantities. Then they would step over into their lab and they would do their workup. A couple of times, boxes with literally thousands of parts got loaded onto a truck inadvertently and shipped to the wrong customer. Uh, we went in and by moving lighting around, we were able to create an area in their QC area that had a light level of about 140 foot candles. Now, we did not add any fixtures. We did not add any power consumption. We just relocated some of the lighting fixtures into place. And at the end of the project, the owner of the company came up to us, including the utility inspector, and made the comment that he didn't know how he could have performed his job before, with the lighting that they had before. Just by giving them adequate lighting, they avoided thousands and thousands of dollars worth of errors on their shipping dock. So recording the light levels specifically in the areas where it's important. In food service areas, that would be on the tabletops where people are actually handling food. Uh, Health departments have a 100-foot candle reading requirement for food handling surfaces. So we want to know what the light levels are on the tabletops where people are actually preparing food. We want to account for existing motion switches, offices, restrooms, warehouse, high bays. Uh, we need to know where they have motion switches. That has a real impact on your proposal. If they have an existing motion switch, it affects what their current power consumption is and what their proposed power consumption is going to be. We want to definitely account for existing emergency lighting. That's a high dollar item and it's a code item. So we can't just blow it off. If we see one little red button, there's a bunch of them in the place and we need to find them and we need to locate them on a survey as a separate line. So you might go into an office space like a lobby and they've got recess troughters, and they've got maybe 10 recess troughters, and one of them has a red light in it. So you'd have two lines, one with 9 and one with 10 with showing an EM, be R22483 EM, to indicate that that one has an emergency lighting battery in it. We need to record the hours and days per week of operation. When you go through a facility, the facility might be open 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. But some rooms are only open 1 hour a day, 3 days a week, while other lighting areas are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A lot of times, businesses will have 2 or 3 or 4 security lights that are left on 24 hours a day. So you ask the people, do any of these lights stay on for security 24/7? If they do, record it for that. That's power consumption, and that's power that we can save for them in their 24-hour operation. We also want to identify any lighting needs, especially people on the floor might bring up. You might be talking to a machinist that says, well, I can't see what I'm doing here because of the shadows, being cast on my table. Or somebody will say that I need more light over in this corner, or I need more light over this piece of equipment. By identifying those areas, we might be able to just simply relocate a few fixtures and make the lighting more useful for the people who are using it. When you're getting ready to do the survey, you need to ask them some questions. Always ask about pictures. Uh, there are situations where pictures are not acceptable. Schools are one place that I found are, in most cases, not acceptable if the students are in the school. Assisted living facilities. A lot of times there'll be a limitation that pictures of the fixtures are okay, but do not include any of the residents or staff that are in the facility. Some will actually prohibit pictures. In manufacturing environments, I've run into places where, because of proprietary processes, they don't want any pictures taken. Uh, so if all we need to do is ask, if the answer is no pictures, then no pictures. Don't take any. If it's a limited permission, then stick within the limits and get the pictures that we can, but don't press the limits either. Uh, and in the case of most utilities, they just by corporate rule will not take pictures in schools, for instance. They just too much risk of getting a picture of a child. Uh, Ask them about spaces that need more light or they need lighting relocated or removed. A lot of times people have moved racking around or moved equipment around in their facility. And now some of the lighting is stacked up over the top of racks and they want to move out over the aisleway. So let's find out about that. Identify it in the survey and on that lighting. So the client needs these three high bays moved 3 feet over the aisleway. That way we can account for it and we can show it in their proposal. Try to get a copy of a recent power bill. We've been going into more and more and more jurisdictions lately, and most states have multiple utilities. Some cities have multiple utilities. So getting a copy of a power bill, if you can, is very helpful. The basic procedures: record any space or location you want. Follow a logical path. The notes you provide a guide for the utilities engineer and our installation crew to follow. Now remember, whatever you say for a location is all that our installers have to go by. It's all the utility has to go by for where you are in the facility. So the more detail you can give, the better. Now I go to quite some length. I walk into an area like our office, and my first line will be front lobby. My second line will be lobby restroom. Now we don't have any cove lighting or anything else in here. So then my third line will be back office. And then my fourth line will be warehouse. So I have each line clearly delineates where we are. In a lot of nicer places, you go into the front lobby, will also have a conference room, and there might be a private office, and there might be a closet. And so you record lobby conference room, lobby restroom, lobby closet, lobby behind counter if there's a mail room or something of that sort behind the counter. But that tells the utility engineer and our installers that stay in the damn lobby. Don't go looking down the hallway for a closet. The closet's in the lobby. The more words you can put in there, the better. Record each type of luminaire in that space. Different bulb counts or styles are separate luminaires. So if you go into a space that has RT2484s and RT2482s, 2 lamp and 4 lamp, that's two different fixtures. It's not just recessed troffers. It's a recessed troffer with 4 lamps and a recessed troffer with 2 lamps. Uh, and if any of them have an emergency battery in them, that's a third line that would go into it. Start each space with pictures and line level readings, and then the count. That's especially helpful in large areas. Put your clipboard down and start walking around. Take line level readings, get some averages, get some tabletops, get some areas around this way. Take a lot of pictures. That first go around going to give you an opportunity to see all the little side rooms and different things that you're going to run into when you start doing the counting. Then you want to count all of the fixtures attached to the ceiling. So don't worry about what's hanging on the wall. Don't worry about what's over the desktop. Don't worry about the equipment. Don't worry about the restrooms. Just worry about what's hanging off of the ceiling. So you count all of the ceiling lamps. Then you count the fixtures attached to the walls. And then you count the fixtures that are in the interior of the space. And yes, that means you walk the space a couple, three times. That's okay. Because the more times you walk it, the more likely is you're going to see everything there is to see, in that space. And you'd be surprised, you go into some warehouses and, well, they got an oil storage room and they've got a tool room and they've got a break room and they've got all these little side rooms around the perimeter of it that, you might have missed if you just focused on the warehouse. Pictures. The first picture should be the space. Take a step back and take a good picture of the space. We need to see how the lighting's laid out. We need to see how tall the ceiling is. We need to see what kind of ceiling it has. We need to see how the light's being used. Then take pictures of each of the fixtures, each fixture style, and then the bulbs. Try to get pictures of the fixtures showing the bulbs. Now, I know that's tough to do in a lot of cases, but the better that picture is, the better we can be in evaluating the proposals. T5s and T8s can be difficult to tell apart, and especially 2x2 research offers. I run into a lot of T5s in a little indirect direct 2x2s out there. So you got to, try to get a picture of the bulb if you can. But sometimes they have spare bulbs or burnt out bulbs that you can get pictures of, and that'll help us with, identifying what they've got in their system. The things you need to look for, EMs and EBUs. EBUs is emergency backup, fixture mounting height, access. Are we going to have a excessive problem gaining access to this? Is it out over something that's going to require special equipment? Is it in a stairwell where we need to give special scaffolding to be able to get to it? Just need to make a note if it's something unusual. Uh, you need to look at how the light is being used. If it's just casual, transportation, transit, just walking through the area, 5-foot candles is plenty. But if it's a high tech area, then we want to go with a much higher, light level reading. Look for places that need to relocate or remove or add additional lighting. You might look down an hallway and see that, well, if every third row of fixtures needs to be moved, and that means we're going to need to add one more row because we've tightened up the road to line up with the new aisleway. Just make a note, relocate, fixtures over aisleways and add 3 fixtures to last aisleway. And that's what I got today for lighting audits and foot candles. Anybody have any questions?
Hey, Bruce.
Yes.
Often we'll go into a large office area. Let's say it's 3,000 square feet. Half the fixtures are turned off or not being used. How do we handle that in an audit? Do we count every fixture anyway? Because if we end up replacing those, we're going to have too much light based on their current fixture layout. Is there a better way to handle that?
Yes, there is. ETO or all of the utilities are going to walk into a space, and if if every fixture has one tube missing, they're going to understand that this facility, let's say they have three lamp tubes, three tube fixtures, RT2483, but every fixture has one tube missing. We're only going to be able to count that as an RT2482, because that's what they have, and that's what we're going to match when we replace it. If it's a maintenance issue, then we can call it an RT2483, and we'll replace it accordingly and get the rebates and energy savings as if it had three in it. But I've been in places like I did a DMV office down in Salem, huge place, and it is a huge open office space. And what people in the office space had done was they had painted, mind you, the T8 lamps over their desk black because it was too bright. And it was a union shop, and only electricians could take the light bulbs out. So the people who had to live under the light painted the light bulbs black, to get it. Uh, we had another facility that was way overlit, and almost all our fixtures had lamps missing. The initial auditor had counted it as if it had full lamps in it. Utility came in and immediately reduced the existing by the correct amount, taking the four lamp fixture down to two lamps, which blew the hell out of our replacement fixtures that we were going to put in. Uh, the rebate went from like $60,000 down to about $3,000. We were able to, by removing some fixtures from the final, recover some of that rebate. But because the initial auditor had counted them as four lamp instead of two lamp, we got ourselves in a real hard spot. So if they've removed lamps and it's permanent, then that's what it is. It's you walk into a space. Computer rooms are famous for this. You walk into a space, 2/3 of the lights are not on or the lamps are missing. That space, we cannot assume that they have full lamps in them. We have to use a count that's reflective of what it actually is.
Bruce, could we have a separate line item that denotes the number of fixtures that are turned off, and then just make a note saying that they're run 0 hours a day, 0 days a week?
If fixtures are off, and there are spaces like conference rooms where the fixtures are off almost all day. They're only on when the conference room is actually maybe 2 hours, maybe 4 hours a day. In an office space where people have multiple switches and they have the option of turning some of their lights off, uh, I would count them both as separate lines. I have one line that's 8 hours a day, and I have one line that's 2 hours a day. To reflect the fact that those lights are on some of the time, but not necessarily all of the time. And then we would go ahead and replace the products with most likely with a selectable wattage that would allow people to tune all the lights down a little bit and achieve the light levels that they really want.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday for more education. Thank you, guys.
Okay, yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.